Tequila creams are not a new thing here in the UK. They're the big famous brand that most people will probably have heard of is Tequila Rosé, and that is a strawberry cream tequila. However, I've been working with this brand, or I should say using this brand now for, I've lost track, but probably a year. And it's the brand that I use in cocktail masterclasses, my hen parties. I always start my hen parties off with shots of these served up ice cold. We've got 5 flavors there. We've got chocolate, we've got strawberry, we've got coconut, we've got mango, and we've got espresso. And I generally let them have free reign. What flavor do they like? More often than not, it's the coconut and the mango that fly. But actually, one of my favorites is the espresso. Now, Tequila 38 kind of sort of said to me, do you know what? We'd like to sort of evolve these into cocktails. Is there any chance you can kind of have a play about? So a couple of weeks ago on a live stream, Sunday night live stream, I kind of put these to the test and asked my core audience, the people that tune in on the live streams, to come up with their ideas. I had some ideas. So this video is a result of this. These are the 5 best cocktails that I could find. I've tweaked them. I've played about with them. One of them is exactly as it is in that live stream. But what I'm essentially doing is giving you 5 recipes with these, but 1 flavor of each. So 1 chocolate cocktail, 1 strawberry cocktail, 1 coconut, 1 mango, and 1 espresso. Now, if you are in the UK, there'll be a link in the description where you get this from. To be honest, you can get them on Amazon. It's exactly the same person that sort of sells through Amazon that you can go to online shop. So there'll be both links in there. But to start off with, the very first recipe I did in that live stream was incredible. So it's going to come out to play again. Mango is the first one of choice. We are in sort of mid-November. It's coming up to Christmas. Therefore, it's Snowball season. And this worked beautifully. Let's give you a close-up of that. This worked beautifully as a mango snowball. Now, if you're a US viewer, snowballs might be lost on you, but here in the UK, they are one of our biggest Christmas drinks, okay? Baileys is obviously a huge thing. So you guys think eggnog, okay? But we actually have a brand, and it does sort of translate. Warnick's Advocaat, been around for donkey's years. I call it liquid custard, but it is essentially that with a bit of lime juice and lemonade, and you've got a snowball. But the cool thing with that, because it's a vanilla-y flavour, you can just play about with it so much. And every year, I haven't filmed it yet, but every year I do a video where I'm playing about with different snowballs, trying to beat the snowball that I created last year. Last year's 2024 snowball was a pina colada snowball. That's going to be hard to beat. All right, that was next level. But here, mango, really, really easy. So we're going to start off with our, I'm going to go over to this jigger, our Warnick's Advocaat, 30 mil. Typically all you need, 30 to 50 mil. You know, I wouldn't go 60 mil, sorry, you know, let's just do it. But 30 mil for this. I forgot, because it does have to live in the fridge because it is eggs. There we go. And it's got about 6 months, you know, once open, keep it in the fridge, about 6 months. But 30 mil, 1 ounce of Warnick's Advocaat. To that, we are going to be using the mango. I'll give you another close up on that. It's a Spanish brand. But using obviously Mexican tequila because it can't be tequila. All right, but they just import this. So 30 mil, 1 ounce of the mango, Tequila 38. The old school, before lime juice was like easily available thing, it was lime cordial, you know, Schweppes lime cordial or roses or whatever. But I think most of us now would use fresh lime, or, you know, as we've got blood bottled lime juice in there. Again, you don't need too much here. I think 15 mil is actually even overkill. So 10 mil, maybe like a third of a lime if you're squeezing lime. So 10 mil of lime juice. And then, you know, I mess around with different sodas and that, but a typical snowball is just proper lemonade. And this is just FIFA Trees lemonade, Schweppes, RY, anything like that. You know, I think you need lemonade as opposed to soda water. Flavored soda waters are a different thing because they've got a different level of sweetness to plain soda water. So they work really, really well as well. But for this, we're letting the mango tequila do the work. Just top up with lemonade. I went through that time in my life where I was too cool for snowballs. You know, as a bartender, but bartenders are snowballs. But when you get a little bit older, there is nothing better than a snowball, I tell you. And that is so good. It's just fun. If you love custard, if you love vanilla, that is a great drink. That mango note that just comes through there is super vibrant in mango-y. You know, really, really good. Easy drinking, fun Christmas cocktail. That's superb. Love that. So the next recipe, we are going to be focusing on the strawberry. Let's give you a close-up of a full bottle. This is Tequila 38 strawberry. Really good. But because I think like tequila rosé is a big thing in there, people don't really go for this in cocktail master classes. They go for the other flavors. But strawberry is a really, really good flavor. So this recipe has kind of evolved from that live stream. I did kind of do a hazelnut version of that. It didn't quite work. Well, it did work. I was happy with it. I liked it. I tried it with pandan. I think I slightly preferred the hazelnut, if I was honest, but there was still like 7.5s, 8s out of 10s. Really good, but not like, wow, that is absolutely incredible. So I kind of remade this and went back to what I used to do. And that was kind of make this with Amaretto. So this is kind of like a strawberry shortcake, if you like. But I want you to stay tuned to the topping of this, because there's something else cool that I want to talk about here. So as the Amaretto is here, we might as well start off with this. So your favorite Amaretto of choice, 30ml, 1 ounce. We've got Luxardo here. I want some vanilla vodka. So we're going to be using Dutch Barnes Barlinaise. I think that's right. Vanilla vodka. Again, matching the Amaretto, 30ml, 1 ounce. Let's bring our strawberry cream out to play. There we go, just so you can kind of see it again. And I'm going to go for 30ml, 1 ounce of this. These aren't super strong. They're either 15% ABV or 17% ABV. So again, 30ml, 1 ounce of this. Now, I didn't have any cream on the live stream, so but I've normally always got this sort of stuff here. This is bitter cocoa, coconut water, but this is the stuff with flesh. So it's still thin like milk, or like a water, but it's got that creamy texture. And I really like this as a cream alternative. I think this is absolutely fantastic. So I'm going for a full sort of 60ml, 2 ounces to a double bubble. Then quick shake, and I'm gonna go for a highball glass because of the topping that I've got in a minute, but we're just gonna strain that over fresh ice. Should come 3/4, maybe 4/5 of the way up the glass. Now, in this little bad boy is skimmed milk, and it's a cream whipper. Now, because of what I do for other businesses, the other side of my work, this has been touted about as being the big trend that's coming. Now, it's been touted about now for well over a year, and it's cold foams. Cold foams are essentially skimmed milk, because skimmed milk has, well, I think this is right, more protein, so they're more stable than full fat milk or cream when you put them on there, and you can whip them. But they have this great kind of texture added into cocktails. So loads of brands have been touting this. It hasn't really exploded, but I think we could be, because they've been talking about it for a couple of years, I think we could be ripe for the picking now. But it's only going to happen if more people start doing it. All right. So, I think it's fun. I think it's a fun addition to cocktails. This thing is actually, look, cream whippers are actually quite expensive, but, I think most of you, the regular viewers, will know that I do a lot of work for drink stuff. They're a client of mine. So this is actually their own brand, and it's actually really, really cheap. It's like a 20 quid cream whipper. It's half the size of like a proper, like £100 one. So, so it's a 500ml job, but you get the little cream gases in there, different nozzles, and it works quite well. So all that's in here is skimmed milk and vanilla syrup. And I do it personally at a 1:6 or a 1:7 ratio. Some brands I've seen when they do this, do it in 1:4. I think that's a little bit too sweet. I just want to kind of like a vanilla alone. But if you can keep this in the fridge for 4 or 5 days, as long as you've kind of, as long as the gas stays charged in it. So I'm just going to top this with this. I think this nozzle will be fine, but with like a vanilla cold foam just on top there. That's so flipping tasty. Fun. They're fun drinks. Disco cocktails is what I call them. The whole point of that vanilla foam, it's not supposed to be, like, if you want that whole mountain of like cream, and like they use cream. The whole point of cold foam is supposed to be a lighter alternative, like the skim milk is a lighter alternative that will just sit flat on cocktails. And that's where the trend is coming. Clarified cocktails with this cold foam on top. It's got potential. It just involves people investing in these. And as I say, they're 100 quid a pop. And you might need, this is like vanilla. Say you've got a menu and you want 3 or 4 different flavors on the menu, then you're going to have 3 or 4. But 20 quid. good for drink stuff, trade account's going to be cheaper, then, and the smaller, perfect for home bars. I think it's a great, great kind of trend. Whether it explodes or not, I don't know. But that is a flipping fun and tasty drink. It's like this nutty, strawberry, creamy little number without being fattening and without being heavy. And I think that is the crucial thing. That's delicious. Disco cocktails. Now, for the third recipe, I'm bringing out the chocolate to play. Now, in full disclosure, being open and honest, I'm actually filming this at the end. So I've already filmed the fifth cocktail. Now, I did make a little faux pas, is that one of the ingredients I wanted to talk about in this recipe, I actually talk about in the very next cocktail because I filmed that before, obviously, filming this one. So I'm not going to touch on what it is. I'm just going to use it, and then you can hear me explain why I'm using it in the fourth cocktail. But this one is a chocolate and cherry sour, just slightly tweaked from the live stream. So I'm going to go to the vodka first. Dutch Barnes cherry vodka, actually proper vodka, actually blended with cherry juice. Oh, so good, so good. I did actually make a chocolate and orange version of this, but I much prefer the cherry, chocolate and cherry, me personally. 30 ml, 1 ounce. Again, as I've said, I'm not trying to make these cocktails overly boozy. I don't think creamy, desserty cocktails should be overly boozy. They should be easy to drink. But the beautiful thing is with these Tequila 38s, they're kind of like a milky base, not a creamy base. So therefore, they're not that heavy. They're just really easy-going cocktails. Right. Tequila 38 black. I think this is probably the first one in the range because their Instagrams, their socials are Tequila 38 black. But it all translates through to the rest of the... I give, and this is a good warning, when like hen parties and that, the bride is typically wearing white. So I always give the warning, be careful if you have chocolate because it stains. And the whole reason it stains is because it's flipping proper chocolate in there. It's not just some airy-fairy like chocolate flavouring and all that. When you see this, when you taste this, this is like, it's just like boozy liquid dairy milk. It is such a good chocolate flavour. And I think a brat in its own right deserves much more love than, on its own. It is such a great drink. So, ice cold, like for shots, but in this cocktail, I'm going to match the cherry, 30 ml, 1 ounce. Look, if I can do this as slow as possible, look at that. Like proper chocolate. Right, this is the ingredient we're going to talk about in cocktail 4 in a second. So I'm not even going to name drop it. We're just going to go for it. Just want 10 ml. Okay, actually, sorry, that is a lot. Yeah, 10 ml. Let's stick with the 10 ml. Sorry, 10 ml of this stuff. Now I'm just going plain sugar here. This is just a 2-to-1 sugar syrup. And I'm going to match that super sour. You could go a touch more if you wanted to, but I'm going for 10 ml. Then the whole reason I'm filming this last is so I can have a nice ice cold frozen glass for the photos. That is beautiful. Chocolate and cherry. The only thing better for combo for me with chocolate is like the old Jamaica chocolate bar, like rum and raisin. I love that combo. For me, chocolate and cherry is just superb, stunning. It is light. I like the super sour in that. Stay tuned for the next cocktail to explain why. I love the cherry note, the vodka note in there. It's just beautiful. It's so well balanced, not overly sweet, but it is light. If you closed your eyes, I don't think you'd overly notice that you're drinking a creamy cocktail. And that's the beautiful thing I love about these. It's a pretty light but chocolatey drink. It's delicious. So for your fourth little number, we are swapping over to Tequila 38 Coconut. Traditionally one of the more favourite flavours out of the 5 on cocktail masterclasses. This stuff flies out. Real big, bold coconut flavours like pina colada, essentially. So it's a great favourite. Now, we did make this cocktail on the live stream again. I have tweaked it slightly. It's called the Solero, and it is based on a cocktail that I used to bang out in the early 2000s on my menu. It was on my menu for about 4 or 5 years because we just used to sell tons of it. If you think back, if any of you are old enough to think back, I'm not even sure if it's still a thing, but the Solero ice cream, it's kind of like that vanilla-y ice cream in the middle, or lolly, or whatever you want to call it, but then covered with tropical fruits. That is the vibe we are going for. Obviously, different ingredients, because I've got different ingredients these days to like 20 odd years ago, but it's the same, similar sort of vibe. So, as always with this sort of stuff, I've been using 30 mil, so I'm going to keep with that. We're going to go 30 mil of the Tequila 38 coconuts. I would call it coconut cream, but coconuts creamy liquid or whatever you want to call it. Then I'm going to stick with this. I did use this in the live stream. This is Chinola mango. Absolutely delicious stuff. Now, let me explain this quickly, and you can see a passion fruit up there as well. See these as boozy purees, okay? I don't actually know what the percentage is in here of puree to booze, but they are essentially long life and shelf stable purees. Dominican Republic rum blended with Dominican Republic mangoes or Dominican Republic pineapples. There is actually another third flavor. We haven't quite got it here in the UK yet. It's the pineapple, but equally as good. Now, could you use a puree in here? Yes, of course you could. Could you use like a Real or a Monin syrup? Maybe not, because I want other flavors for the sweetness. So again, when you use something like that, that is your sweetness. And there's I'm going to be using orgeat in here in a second. So if you use products like that, you kind of lose the ability to use another syrup. But could you use Boiron? Absolutely. Of course you could. I just like this stuff because I've got the booze in here. And if I'm being brutally honest, for a lot of you people at home, this is a fantastic way of having a long life and shelf stable puree in your bars. I mean, they're not going to keep forever on the back of the bars because it is fresh puree in here, and it sort of does discolor slightly, but they're still going to keep for a decent amount of time. So I'm going to match the coconut, and we're going for 30 ml of this Chinola mango. Then I might as well use the orgeat next, as I've just sort of mentioned it. We're going for Bristol's orgeat syrup. See this, if you don't know what orgeat is, see it as an almond syrup. Essentially weird, but this is a proper one with like orange blossom or orange flower water in it. So you do get those subtle orange lumps. Fantastic in my ties. Probably my go-to now, orgeat here in the UK. I don't want much, just sort of 10 mil. Now this is where this swap comes in, and I'm going to talk about this. Now this is super sour. Now in that live stream, I did use lemon juice, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. I would use that again. But what I did notice after about 5-6 minutes or so was separation in there. And whether that's because I know it didn't really separate with other creamy things, whether it's the combination of the other ingredients I used. But it's not a bad thing, you know. Separation, we get that in lots of cocktails. Pina colada, for instance, if you don't slushy it, it's going to separate unless you go all geeky and use I forget what it's called now. What's it called? Xanthan gum, sort of stabilize it. Okay. So separation is not a bad thing. However, to kind of minimize that, you have got products like Supasawa. Now, I thought Supasawa had gone off the boil a little bit. It wasn't cool. Haven't really seen it about. But in the last month, 6 weeks or so, I've been actually going out into the trade a little bit more with other things that I've been doing. And the chain bars that I've been visiting have all got Supasawa behind their bar, because it is essentially a long life and shelf stable citrus. Now, would I ever use this in daiquiris? I have done. It does make an okay daiquiri, but for me, it's not a replacement in those sort of drinks, margaritas, daiquiris, mojitos. I don't think it's a replacement there. Where it is a replacement is in cocktails like this that do require a citrus element. Okay, tiki cocktails, that's going to work beautifully well in tiki cocktails. These creamy cocktails, you can get citrus in there without actually having juice. So I think it's a fantastic product. Again, long life and shelf stable, perfect for home bars. You know, if you don't even have to think about it. You don't even have to keep it in the fridge. Just keep it on the back of your bar. Brilliant, brilliant products. And now I've seen it out and about again. It's good, might as well start using it again because it's pretty easy to get. So you don't need much. I would say if you are going to use like 30 ml of citrus typically in a cocktail, you could bring it right down to 10 ml. All right, so that is what I'm going for here. About 10 ml of Supasawa. Then I've already used it in this video. This would have, back in the day, would have been a creamy cocktail, and I would have used cream. But do you know what? I just think having this sort of stuff, here you go, let's have another close up. Vita Coco, this is the fleshy one. So it's coconut water with coconut flesh in it. So it's still light, but you have got that creamy kind of texture to it. And I think for those of you that want those like dessert cocktails, but don't necessarily want them heavy with single or double cream or whatever, half and half, whatever you're using. Stuff like this is an absolute genius idea. So 60 ml, 2 ounces of coconut creamy coconut water. Then after a quick shake, again, I think this might be brilliant in like the slushy machine or blended. I think it's that sort of cocktail, but I'm just shaking this. We're just going to pour it into a highball glass. But I think this in its own guise like this right now, be perfectly happy in like a martini or a coupe glass if you wanted to. And then just one final little adaptation to what I did in that live stream. As I've got it out here, this is this vanilla cold foam. I just think it would be brilliant on this, and I think vanilla is a good shout, but you could go any way there. You could do a passion fruit foam in there, you could do a mango foam in there, you could do a pineapple foam, anything that's going to kind of complement that. You could actually use a touch of grenadine or something like that, raspberry syrup, and turn it red, and then you could do a red cold foam on top of there, whatever kind of takes your fancy with that. But I'm just going to, as it's here, I'm just going to top this up with my vanilla cold foam. And you know what, that is so flipping delicious. That is probably going to be my favorite drink of this video. It was so good back then in the 2000s. We'd sold tons and tons of them. But I just think that's even better because I know back then I was using kind of half and half, like single cream or like whole milk mixed with whole cream. I just think now it's lighter. I love the addition of that vanilla foam, and that would be really cool to kind of play with that. As I said, the red foam on top there. But the actual cocktail, I actually enjoy that better than a pina colada. You know, you've got mango and coconut in there. And I just think that is stunning. You could perhaps bump that up, the ABV up just ever so slightly with something else. Absolutely. But that is so easy drinking. It's so delicious. I know for what, if I went back on the menu now, that would sell. It's just fantastic. I love it. Now for the final recipe, we're going to focus on, as I said at the top, actually one of my favorite Tequila 38s, and this is the Espresso. I really like that. It's not like you would think Patron, Tequila Patron, what's it called? I completely forgot what it on, but Patron XO, there we go. You kind of think it's similar to that. It's not, it's a creamy version, you know, it's not the same kind of vibe, but I just love the Espresso tequila kind of note on here. So for this recipe, I'm going for a riff on a pina colada. We're going like an espresso colada, and it works beautifully well. Now, this wasn't in the live stream. I've kind of adapted this afterwards because I did want a kind of colada vibe going on here. So for the base of this, I'm going for Plantare's Stiggins Fancy, their pineapple rum, 30 ml, 1 ounce of that. Then I'm going for my Espresso Tequila 38. I just want 30 ml, so I'm matching it. And this one's the stronger one. No, it's the weaker one. This is 15% ABV. So as I say, they're not that strong. Smell the aroma. So flipping good. Now, I've made this a couple of different ways. I was really, really torn. I did make it with like Coco Real, and that was flipping damn good. But then I thought, look, these cocktails that I'm going here, I know the kind of audience they're going for, and perhaps this is not necessarily the ingredient that those you people would have. I think this, when you're making pina coladas, I think this is a firm, like up there as one of the ingredients that you should have. But again, I wanted to make life easier. So I'm sticking with that coconut, the fleshy kind of coconut water. This won't give it the creamy texture of like a pina colada, but this is a lighter, creamier drink, if you know what I mean, if that makes sense. So I'm going for 60 ml, 2 ounces of this coconut water with flesh, and then I'm going for some pineapple juice. The other thing is as well, you can't see it, it's off camera, but it will be coming out. Maybe it have already came out, depending when you watch this and when it drops for the live stream. But I've got a Ninja slushy there. I haven't used it yet, but this, you know, this sort of cocktail would be perfect in that Ninja slushy. I think it's the balanced booze to sweetness level, liquid level would be perfect in a slushy. So that's kind of the thing that I was going for here. Anyway, 45 ml. I want more coconut than I do pineapple. So 45 ml, 1.5 ounces. This is 100% pressed pineapple juice, not a concentrate. And it's this final ingredient, an absolute necessity. We're going back to the Supasawa that I rocked out in the previous cocktail, I think it was. Citrus in this. For my palate, I preferred the citrus note in there. I like pina coladas with just that little bit of citrus, not overly citrus. I'm not saying like 30 ml in a pina colada. I just want a tiny, tiny little bit in here. So I'm actually, when I said in the previous cocktail that if you're going 30 ml of proper lime juice and you did 10 ml here, I'm actually going for 5 ml. That's all I want, just a touch, 5 ml of super sour. Now, after a good shake, if I've done my maths right, we should have enough room for just a little bit of that vanilla cold foam that I made earlier. Now, just on this very, very quickly, you know, this is what I mentioned when I said, look, if you want 4 or 5 different flavors, then these little things for drink stuff will be perfect. Because actually for this, like a coffee colada, especially with the pineapple in there, a salted caramel foam, cold foam might be absolutely perfect in there. You could have so much fun. You could do like even a coffee foam, a coffee cold foam, like add in like espresso or coffee syrup or something to that skimmed milk to kind of diff that. I've got vanilla here because I've just used that, but I just want you to think about like different things. Just play back the ratios. As I say, like Monin that are champion this do a 1:4, 1 part syrup, 4 parts skimmed milk. In here for me, I've done 1:7, and I have used Bristol syrups, Bristol vanilla syrup here, but I still think that is plenty vibrant enough and sweet enough to carry that flavor forward. So, but I think in a coffee colada, I actually think like salted caramel could be a really good shout. Anyway, I'm just going to top this. That is so tasty. I love that. It's a fun pina colada with a coffee twist. Coffee and pineapple works so well. Coffee and coconut works so well. You can see the sort of cream has, or the cold foam, I should say, is kind of sinking, so it's heavy. But I think, like tasting that, I think that is perfect. The base, this part, is perfect for a slushy, a frozen style of cocktail, and then you can put that cold foam on top because that vanilla-y, that actually does add to that. Vanilla pineapple, vanilla coffee, vanilla espresso martinis are a huge thing. You know, but I would be interested to play with different cold foams on that. Like, I'd still think salted caramel might be really, really fun in there. Maybe even some saline, and maybe even put a couple of drops of saline into the actual pina colada base of that. That is so good. That is fun. So there we go. If you are still watching right at the end of this video, give me a massive thumbs up. Let me know, comment, just simple comment, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which cocktail would you prefer? Which flavor would you prefer? Are you a coffee fan? Would you go chocolate? Would you go mango? Would you go coconut? Would you go strawberry? Let me know in the comments below. And then if you want to watch another video, YouTube thinks you're going to enjoy this one next. I'll see you next time.